head over now to the Seattle Mariners. Now, the past series in particular across this 5-game homestand got a lot of interesting reactions after it ended. So we'll get to that. But it did start positively, as you'll see here with the broom. The Mariners completed a 2-game sweep of the San Diego Padres. August 8th versus the Padres, a 2-0 win. Our player of the game, pictured in this photo of the game by Matthew Bermudez, Logan Gilbert. Logan going into his Walter alter ego for this game. 7 innings pitched, 1 hit allowed, no runs, no walks, and 12 strikeouts. It's a career high in strikeouts for Logan. Just an all-around strong effort. It was a not-so-successful game on the offensive side of the ball for the Mariners, but again, this is something that you kind of come to expect with this team. And the Padres do have some quality pitching on their staff as well, so it's not like this was too much of a disappointment. Obviously, again, you'd like to go out and do well on offense, considering how poor this team has done in general. But all in all, again, not too shabby. Could have been worse. Logan Gilbert in that game became the first right-handed pitcher to strike out Juan Soto 3 times in a game. Juan Soto did have a golden sombrero in that game. If you don't know, golden sombrero is 4 strikeouts by a singular player across the stretch of one game. And then I'm trying to find another piece of history there for Logan Gilbert, because Logan was rock solid in this game. I will go back here. It was his 13th quality start of the season. It's the 7th time in franchise history a starter had an outing with 7 innings plus, no runs, 1 or fewer hits, and 10 strikeouts, being the last to do so, Ronaldinho, in 2015. I'm trying to find, there was one about Felix. Shoot. See if I can find it here. Yes. All right, here it is. It was... That outing was only the second performance in team history of 10 plus strikeouts, no walks, with 1 or fewer hits allowed. Only 2 times that's been done. The other one to do it, Felix Hernandez, who the Mariners were honoring that weekend. So we'll get to that weekend in a second. August 9th versus the Padres to complete the sweep, a 6-1 win. Some more offense there. Play of the game, catcher Cal Raleigh. Cal, 2 hits, 1 run, and 2 RBIs. Cal hit a 2-run homer late to help the Mariners kickstart a big insurance blast of runs in the late innings. Our photo of the game here by Liz Walter captures Julio Rodriguez going around the bases. Julio being scored by Cal on the 2-run homer, showing some excitement there. So it's fun in that one to see the expression. But also, if we go back here to this game 2 of the series 2-game set, Emerson Hancock made his major league debut. 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Obviously, you want to work on the walks there, but 5 innings, 2 hits, not bad whatsoever from a guy who's getting called up from Double-A. That makes it the 3rd pitching prospect that the Mariners have called up this season in terms of the starting rotation, behind Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, and now Emerson. So a strong performance there overall in that 2-game set against the Padres, both standing at the pitching standpoint. You know, game 1, you would like to score more than 2 runs. But, you know, Logan Gilbert, Emerson Hancock, and then the bullpen as well were big. The 3 big stars for the Padres in Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Juan Soto, and you can include Xander Bogaerts, but it's not as fun, went 0 for 22, I believe it was, in that game. And Soto had 4 strikeouts in that game. So, across those 2 games. So, yeah, that was nice to take care of business. The Mariners take the Vetter Cup this year. They had a day off on Thursday before they welcomed the best team in the American League, the Baltimore Orioles, to town. And things started off well in game 1 of the 3-game series. They would win the August 11th contest 9-2. Our player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Julio, 2 hits, 1 run, and 4 RBIs in this game. Just unfortunate that really weren't able to continue it, but the big performance on offense really they jumped all over Kyle Gibson for Baltimore, and the pitching was strong once again. So you thought, okay, you know, it's probably unlikely that you go and put up the same sort of offensive production in game 2, let alone the rest of the series. And that would be true. You can see on your screen, game 2, they would lose that one on the 12th, 0-1. Our player of the game, well, before I get to player of the game, that was Felix's induction ceremony. King Felix was inducted as the 11th member of the Mariners Hall of Fame here in this photo by Liv Lyons, getting his Hall of Fame jacket for the franchise being put on by the great Ken Griffey Jr. A very emotional day there. One of the most beloved Mariners of all time. Spent all 15 years of his career here. Never really got enough support from his team around him, which is by no means his fault. And then Felix is an emotional guy anyway. He started crying as soon as he came out of the bullpen in left field when they introduced him. So all very deserved, though. All of this sort of fan fest and fanfare throughout the weekend for Felix is very, very well earned. So that was before the game. The game itself was unfortunate. The Mariners would get runners on base. They just weren't able to score them. They went 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. They lose this game, and they waste an excellent performance by our player of the game, pitcher George Kirby. Kirby, as seen in this photo of the game by Liv Lyons, 9 innings pitched. Yes, he pitched all 9 innings. So if the Mariners had given him any run support whatsoever, he would have had a complete game. 3 hits allowed, no runs, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. So in George Kirby typical form, he doesn't give up a walk. The 3 hits he allowed were all on their own individual time, so they never really threatened. The Orioles never really threatened against George Kirby, and George was masterful, absolutely masterful. It's the second time that Kirby has gone 8 innings plus, 8 scoreless innings, and hasn't gotten any run support, which is very frustrating. Game 3 of this series, we're going to talk about frustrating here. Well, I guess it's time to put the photo on the screen. Scott Service being ejected in this ball game and showing some frustration with third base umpire Adam Beck, who called a balk call on Andres Munoz, which would later play a role in Jorge Mateo scoring the go-ahead run in the top of the 9th for Baltimore. He would get ejected for arguing that call. Manny Acta would take over as the acting manager. The Mariners would lose this game 3-5. Our player of the game, right fielder Dominic Canzone. Canzone only had 1 hit on the day, but it was an important one. 1 hit, 1 run, 1 RBI. Canzone hit an absolute tank shot of a homer into right field off the former Hit It Here Cafe glass. Just an at-bat after Ty France had potentially hit the game-tying home run, but was robbed by Cedric Mullins. So all of the emotion went down and went back up when Canzone hit that homer. We go into 10 innings. Cedric Mullins hits a 2-run homer to right field, and the Mariners aren't able to respond. So they would lose that series 2-1 to the Baltimore Orioles to close out that homestand with a 3-3 record. 3-2 record over the 5 games. I can count, I promise. Our player of the week, offense wasn't really too spectacular, and with the sort of performance that George has had in this game and kind of has had all season, I had to go with George. That 9-inning game to go out there, and he was efficient too. It's not like he was pumping into the high 100s or mid 100s or low 100s with his outing. George was able to be efficient with his pitches and thus was able to go deep into the ball game. And he's had a great year. His 3 WAR, a 10-8 record, a 3-11 ERA, 131 strikeouts, and a 1.002 WHIP. Now I want to see where he stacks up actually on the Mariners in terms of we'll get this going here in terms of WAR, because he's pretty high on this list. Let's see, where is he? Yeah, he's 3rd on the list in total WAR, and as a pitcher behind JP Crawford and Julio Rodriguez. So very, very valuable to this team and what they're doing. I get it. You should have won games 2 and 3 and should have had a sweep of the Baltimore Orioles, the best team in all of the American League. Not all of baseball, the American League. These are games you should have won. Yes, you should have swept the homestand. I get that. The 8-game winning streak would end in game 2 against the Orioles. You're now a game and a half back of the Toronto Blue Jays for that last wild card spot. But it's not like the world has ended. The reaction to this game from a lot of the fan base was essentially that this was the worst thing ever, and that the season was over, and that they squandered the biggest opportunity of all time. The Mariners very well can get back into that playoff spot that they had the day of that second game of the Baltimore series, and they've got the rest of the month of August. Now I say that, and I'm knock on wood, optimistic about it, because when we look at the Mariners' schedule with that road trip that begins today in Kansas City against the Royals, who are, by the way, the second worst team in all of baseball record-wise, the Mariners will go on the road now for 10 games, and then we'll get to the homestand after that 10-game road trip, because it's beneficial as well. And this is granted that the Mariners take care of business, which they need to. They played great, focused baseball for a good amount of this series against the Orioles, who just weren't able to put up enough runs, which is something we've been talking about for the entirety of the season. But they play 4 games against the Kansas City Royals, again, who have the third second worst record in all of baseball behind the Oakland Athletics. They go on the road to play the Houston Astros for 3 games over the course of the weekend, which I knock on wood again, because they have been good against Houston this year. And then they close out that road trip with 3 games against the White Sox, who have been the third worst team by record in all of baseball. So that's a big opportunity on this road trip. Arguably, over the course of the road trip, over the course of the 10 games, you should win 7 of those games, right? And then they close out, they get a day off on the 24th after that road trip ends. They have a 5-game series to close out the month of August, a 5-game homestand to close the month of August. 3 against those Royals that we talked about. Again, second worst record in all of baseball. And then they host the Oakland Athletics for 3 games, and they're the worst record in all of baseball. So you're playing the 3 worst teams record-wise in all of baseball from today to the 30th of August. It's 5, 10, 15 games over the 16 days that you can insert yourself back into the playoff picture and, hold yourself there, as opposed to just being a half game in. So I really don't think it's that, big dramatic problem that a lot of people are making it. Mariners Twitter is its own issue. I'm not going to call it X. It does suck. Well, we'll have to get to the injury news first before we reveal anything else. You're missing a player that you're going to need throughout that Houston series for sure. But, it's the offense as a whole needs to step up. Over the course of that 8-game winning streak, you'll see that all of that was the players that have been here already. And what have I talked about the entire season so far is that this team, if they're going to make a push, if they're going to do anything successful this season, it's going to be internal. It's going to be the guys that they already have here flipping the switch. And that's what we've seen to a large extent. Julio's picked things up. Eugenio's picked things up. Cal Raleigh's been hitting the ball well, So it's got to be internal, and it has been. But, with the last 2 losses, you don't want to let those compound and then struggle for the rest of the year. Since July 1st began, you've been solid, really solid offensively. You need to continue that, especially over the fortunate stretch that you're going to have to close out the month of August. So we get into injury-related news here. On the 8th, the team placed right-handed pitcher Brian Wu on the 15-day injured list with right forearm inflammation. That is why Emerson Hancock had to come up and make his major league debut. The Mariners had been talking about a 6-man rotation before the news about Wu being injured, as to monitor the innings of both Wu and Bryce Miller. But now with Hancock up, that kind of takes that out of the equation. It's not out of the picture that we see that later, as it was talked about that Emerson Hancock was supposed to join this rotation at some point this year. They had planned to get him big league innings, and now he'll do so. So the injury that I was talking about right there at the end of the overall series discussion was that on August 11th, shortstop J.P. Crawford was placed on the 7-day injured list with a concussion. It was suffered on the 9th against the Padres in Game 2 of that series. Both J.P. and Eugenio Suarez went for a ground ball in their general direction. They both went for it. There was no call off, and J.P.'s head collided with Eugenio's shoulder. Had him down on the ground for a bit. He played in for a few more innings, but ultimately decided, hey, I feel horrible. I shouldn't keep going. He seemed in good spirits when we saw him on the clubhouse on the 11th, but he is on the 7-day IL. The closest day The first day that it can come back is the fourth game against the Royals there on the 17th. That is the series finale against Kansas City. I wouldn't doubt that the Mariners hold him out till the first game of the series against the Astros the next day, just because, again, they should be able to handle business against the Royals. So we look over here. And the third and final sort of injury update that we got here was that on August 13th, left-handed pitcher Marco Gonzalez will be out for the rest of the season. He confirmed before the game on the 13th. It isn't going to be a long recovery. According to Marco, it's a clean-out procedure, much shorter than a repair procedure like a tendon repair. Tommy John being that sort of thing. That was the big worry, that it wasn't Tommy John surgery. Marco expects to be able to go through his normal ramp-up procedure and is planning and should be good to go for the regular start to spring training. Marco was diagnosed with an anterior interosseous nerve, AIN syndrome, anterior interosseous nerve syndrome, a rare, less than 1% of all cases, syndrome that is associated with overuse injuries but is not heavily documented amongst Major League Baseball pitchers. In AIN syndrome, the nerve that controls pronation for one's wrist and finger, which is obviously then pretty important for a pitcher, is compressed and requires surgery to relieve the pressure on that nerve. The last that we got a few days ago in a injury update from Mariners general manager Justin Hollander is that they still hadn't been able to take the pressure off of that nerve. So they're going to go out, clean that out, and Marco should be ready by the start of spring training next season. So there are some roster moves that have come as a result of these moves, these injuries. On the 8th, Ryder Ryan, right-handed pitcher, now in the bullpen, was recalled from AAA Tacoma. Right-handed pitcher Ryan Jensen was claimed off of waivers from the Chicago Cubs. And right-handed pitcher Matt Fessa was designated for assignment. He did clear waivers, and he is now a free agent. On the 11th, infielder/outfielder Sam Haggerty was recalled from AAA Tacoma as a corresponding move to the J.P. Crawford injury. Haggerty, since being sent down, had bat a 319 batting average through 42 games with the Rainiers, which is pretty good. So we look ahead. The Mariners have a 63-win, 54-loss record at this current point in time, third in the American League West, 6.5 games back from the top of the division where the Texas Rangers currently sit, and a game and a half back from the wild card where the Toronto Blue Jays sit. Their next 4 games, as I mentioned, starting today against the Kansas City Royals, August 14th through 16th, are all 5:10 Pacific time starts. That sounds a little bit odd. I'm going to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that is correct. Oh, shoot. Yes, all 3 of those games are 5:10 starts, and then the series finale on the 17th is an 11:10 a.m. start. Then, as I mentioned, after that Royal series, they head down to Houston for 3 games. August 18th is a 5:10 start. August 19th is a 4:10 start, and then August 20th is a 10:05 a.m. start on Sunday to close out that 3-game series against the Houston Astros. So the Mariners, again, have a very, very fortunate sort of schedule to work through. So, yeah, it's a very fortunate schedule, as I mentioned. It's really just thinking about it. They have to execute. The offense has to be able to get on base and then drive in the traffic that they've been able to cause because the pitching has been excellent all season long. So we will look over here